Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster back here on this finally Friday. We made it through. The weekend is upon us. It is the first day of December, December 1st, 2023, about 11:52 a.m. here, California time. A 1.9 earthquake on the Big Island of Hawaii is the latest quake on the globe. We'll get to earthquake activity here in just a second. We did have that pretty strong solar storm kick up about 3:30 in the morning. Goodness, G3 conditions were observed. Kevin here from the solarham.net site that spends a lot of time monitoring the space weather events laid out a pretty nice diagram here for us, and it shows last night when I did the update just before bed, we seen what looked like maybe a slight increase in the CME activity and Aurora event, but it wasn't all that spectacular. It wasn't until we seen that second passage here of the CME, which is right here about 3 o'clock in the morning, that we observed those G3 storming conditions. Auroras were visible down into portions of California even. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was asleep, but I was woken up by my solar weather alert app, and it basically came through my silenced phone and let me know that the KP index was around 8. Now, I'm not for sure if we did reach up to 8. I think I've seen quite a few of them pointing towards a 7. But either way, we did see things kick up here in the BZ component, tilted south, allowing a lot of that solar wind stream to flow in. Seen some pretty nice conditions out there across the area. Obviously, Canada, Alaska, northern tier states, if you had clear skies, seen quite the spectacular view. According to the spaceweather.com site here, it shows that, they were observed far south as Arizona and California. Arizona here, this article showing probably just before sunrise, a little bit of auroras down there in the pink color. That's pretty awesome looking. That was from Page, Arizona. Did see one here in California as well, but that was down, surprisingly, down in the Borrego Springs area from Dennis Mamana, it looks like. Barely visible, but still, you could see it a little bit here over the mountain range. Now, I did not want to get up there at 3:30 in the morning, go outside. It was pretty cold. It was about 32 degrees. Here where I'm at, a little chilly, so I just went right back to sleep and called it good. Unfortunately, if it did happen, I probably missed out on it. But hopefully, see what's going on here. This is a little weird. Go back here to the SolarHam site. Not for sure if they're having some issues or what. Or what's going on. Are we still live? Is it just the SolarHam site? Or is it my internet? See, every time I go on here, it seems like everyone wants to prevent me from jumping on. Okay, we're back after a little pause there. So, KP index of 7 was reached, a G3 class storm. They called this one pretty good. It arrived, a little bit late, but it was originally forecasted between the 6 and 12 UTC time. So that kind of makes it right about this level. So I would call that pretty much a spot-on forecast. The first CME that hit did not provide, tremendous results of aurora display, but the second hit, which was a combination of about 3 other CMEs, created those awesome conditions there that they've seen across many areas last night, or I should say early this morning, just before sunrise. So if you have any cool pictures to show, send them to earthmastermail@gmail.com. Let us know where you're at and your name, and of course we'll give you guys credit for that. So do we have any further geomagnetic conditions prevailing tonight? Possibly. These are kind of lingering effects. A lot of people like to call these aftershock events because the main event has now passed us, but we're still getting some type of aftershock solar events here that will kick up potentially some G1 class storming conditions here as we head through the night tonight. There's that G3 up to about 7 or so. That's pretty crazy. So it looks like right now current conditions dropping obviously quite nicely into maybe the 4 or 3 range. There's still some auroras being observed there across the unlit side of the Earth, and I think that will we might want to watch that, see if things kick back up here tonight, but nothing like what we've seen earlier this morning. All right, flaring activity looks like 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 35% chance, X flare around 10%. And let's see what 3500 is doing today as it scoots along the southwestern limb of the sun. Still looks fairly complex. That's about the only sunspot region here besides this one that is now pretty much out of sight, out of mind, way off on the western limb. We got to watch this area maybe for some stronger flaring, but even then, this is getting to the position where it's not going to be geo-effective if anything blasts off. And we're left with a whole lot of openness out here. These sunspots out here are pretty wimpy. Not a whole lot of potential with those sunspots. So we'll see what happens here as we head through the weekend and into next week. All right, earthquake activity, California. I said this before I went to bed to watch California. And that was before this activity here. Obviously, I had noted quite a bit of elevated movement in and around this area of Southern California. It was just looking like it wants to go. Well, it didn't go, but we did see a 4.8 kick up last night at the very extreme southern end of the Elsinore fault. Now, let me bring up the 2.5 and above. Show you guys this 4.8. I was awake when this kicked up, but I was in bed already. So I went ahead and just called a night and figured if there was going to be a big one, I'll cover it in the morning because I was pretty tired. So we did have 4.8 and a 3.2. Now this activity was, if you watched my update last night, this was after I had done the update. Observance was made across the state of California in terms of elevated movement. So that just kind of went with the little warning I had out here to keep an eye on Southern California. And I still think with this activity this morning that we're seeing, that we still need to watch the Southern California area. Now, within this region of El Centro and just north of the border area, seen a handful of aftershocks. Hopefully they're aftershocks and not a bunch of foreshocks. So far this morning, we've seen quite a few 2s and even a couple, at least one more 3 in there at about 7 o'clock this morning, the latest one at 1.4. Now, these earthquake depths are all over the place. They are not really consistent, so that makes me think here that maybe we could be looking at some further movement within this region here of Southern California. Now, that 4.8 striking just before midnight. It was felt broadly all over the Southern California area. As you can see, quite a few folks reporting this earthquake, even over in San Diego, with some light shaking being reported from the folks that did report it. And as I mentioned, there's quite a bit of aftershock activity continuing in this region. Hopefully it's aftershock activity, right? So we'll watch this area for now. I am kind of issuing an earthquake watch for this region due to the continued elevated movement. And it is somewhat in close proximity here to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Now, it looks like they removed an earthquake that was last night. Well, there it is up here. A little bit of earthquake activity just on the east side here of the San Andreas Fault. This is not a region where you want to see earthquake activity at because it's very close proximity, in proximity to the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. A lot of people know this fault. I've known it since I was a kid. My parents tell me the big one's going to happen. California's going to fall off in the ocean. It's not going to fall off in the ocean. It's not that type of plate boundary. But it is capable of producing an 8.1 magnitude earthquake here. And we don't want to see any type of earthquake activity specifically right here, just off of the plate boundary itself, where the strain, if you really think about it, the most likely strain is building up in this area along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. And this right here just gives me a key indicator that it's definitely stressed, almost to the breaking point when we see this type of activity. We're still seeing general elevated movement out here in Southern California, and it shows. We got one right now just coming in the last few minutes off the coast here of the Santa Barbara area, 2.4 coming in. So regionally, as a whole, you need to keep an eye on this area. And when you got a sleeping giant here, this 8.1 potential plate boundary, right? That's the San Andreas Fault. I mean, it's going to go. They've had quite a bit of rain. Over the summertime, right? With, who was it? Hurricane, was it Hillary? Tropical Storm Hillary that came down here? Can't remember the exact name. But they've had quite a bit of rainfall. And last winter, they had quite a bit of rainfall as well. This winter is supposed to be an above-average precipitation event for California as well. So it's possible some of that rain could be lubricating down into the surface below. And we just got to watch out, right? So keep an eye on Southern California. I am issuing an earthquake watch out here, specifically for this area due to the elevated movement that's taken place here in the last 36 hours or so. All right, see what else we got. Another one up north of Borrego Springs. There's some of that earthquake activity here. That's a 1.4. Either way, I think we all can agree things are elevated here, not only in one specific region here, but over a good portion of Southern California. Keep your eye on that region. I do have, this is about the local, or the most local seismograph station there that I can get functioning around this current earthquake activity down in the Southern California region here. It is showing some of that smaller earthquake activity. When that 4.8 popped up, it definitely flatlined this graph. And that was with the 3.3 that was on there already. So this is definitely a very close station in close proximity to the earthquake activity down here in Southern California. But it will pick up, obviously, larger movement away from the area. It's a good working station. All right, further up north, not a whole lot in terms of earthquake activity. It looks like things are definitely concentrated around this area of California today. And did see some movement out here in Utah as well, just prior to the movement there in Southern California. That was a 3.9. So regional stress out here, specifically within this region. I know Utah is a long ways away from California, right? But this plate boundary itself, in terms of the Earth as a whole, the plate as a whole itself, is very close to us humans, little ants. Man, take me a couple days, more than a couple days, to walk from Southern California out to Utah. But in close proximity here, these guys are very close in terms of the plate stress potential. So we're seeing that elevated plate stress drift further away from the plate boundary inland, hitting a lot of these oil fields. North American plate definitely strained out here. So keep an eye on Southern California, where the activity is obviously showing right now. Here's the movement in Texas, seeing quite a bit of activity out here in these oil fields. Oil fields galore, right? That's just how it is out here in the beautiful state of Texas. Wastewater disposal facilities. I think you guys know a lot of what's out there, including areas around Oklahoma. A lot of these oil fields getting hit. The New Madrid seismic zone, it is kind of leaning up towards there in a linear fashion. A lot of times we'll see that plate stress kind of point in this area, right in this region here. I wonder if it can see it in this area. Which is the best one to show for that? I'm trying to show the North American craton, not a crouton. A craton is a piece of land here that's been relatively stable of the North American plate, while everything else around it deforms and forms mountains or maybe other type of fault systems. But this area right here, just east of the Rockies, stretches down right up here against the New Madrid seismic zone area, and then back into Canada, is relatively stable. That's the North American craton. We've covered that a lot. Maybe at the end of this video, I'll include a link to my more in-depth view and discussion about that. But it does form on the southern line of that, right here within this region. And that, again, tells me that the North American plate in general is pretty stressed. And it does include this area of the New Madrid seismic zone, where we did see a 2.5 last night, about 9 o'clock or so, before all this earthquake activity in California. Again, the New Madrid seismic zone is a major seismically hazardous area for a large population density. Population density is quite high out here. And it would not, if we see upper 7, low 8 out here, which is capable of, they've seen it back in the 1800s, it would shake up more than just this general localized area. Because earthquakes out here can be felt over a broader area due to the type of sediment, and the crust out here is, well, it shakes up a lot. What is this? Oh, that's a satellite view of that. So, we'll just keep an eye on the California, North American plate. Definitely stressed out here. Puerto Rico region. Let's see what we got up here around Ohio. Earthquake earlier this morning near Lake Erie, 2.3. Seen a little bit of movement taking place out here. And it almost seems like it's just drifting off in this type of fashion here. Northern California has been, well, kind of active here over the last few days. Last couple, well, I shouldn't say last few days. A few days ago it was quite active, but last couple days or so they've been pretty quiet up here. California and this whole area, right, Southern California and this whole area right now definitely seems like things are on the uptick. 2.4. This was from yesterday. It looks like South Carolina region. Either way, just watch that area. I'm getting some weird vibes on that. Puerto Rico Trench, a couple threes coming in. A lot of this from yesterday. The latest one is a 3.0 down here in the southwestern edge of Puerto Rico. Commonly, we see quite a bit of swarming activity out here. That it does take place in between this little trough and the Puerto Rico Trench up here. But they did see another 3.9 in this area, right smack dab on the Puerto Rico Trench plate boundary, 65 kilometers deep. This area looks like it wants to move as well, showing quite a bit of movement up here in the last week in the 3 and 4 range, and some 2s in there as well. So that's another area I need to keep a watch on. This area is capable of producing a significant size earthquake, and we're talking about above a 7 magnitude. All right, South America, let's see what we got going on down here. Didn't want to make this a super long video, but definitely a lot to discuss here with earthquake activity and the solar weather event. And someone, a lot of people asking the relation between space weather and earthquake activity. And not once did I say that they're never related. Someone was calling me out last night on the chat, so I had to jump in as I was laying in bed. And not all the time do I respond to, people saying anything negative. But I felt like I had to jump in and mention that we did do a little look back here at earthquake activity and relation to strong solar events like just what we seen last night. And it came out roughly about 50% of the time we've seen elevated earthquake activity while a strong CME was hitting the Earth, obviously hitting the geomagnetic field, electromagnetic field. And if you think about it, that does play a part on stress amongst the plates out here. And a lot of times, about 50% of the time, we see elevated earthquake activity in relation to strong solar weather events. But it's not 100% of the time. So, in science and stuff like that, you really can't say that that's 100% true, that, elevated earthquake activity is going to happen tonight because we're looking at G3 storming conditions, because we have seen G3, G2, and stronger take place with only minimal earthquake activity, no major events, no unusual activity. So the 100% certainty is not there, but I believe the relation between the two do play a part. And yeah, we've seen it last night, but there's been times in the past, and I've covered it quite a bit in the past. That's probably why that guy came in and said, mentioned what he did there in chat. I'm not going to say it, but it's just not 100% proven. But I do believe the relationship is there between space weather events. It has to be. If you really think about it, the effect on the electromagnetic field and everything else that takes place. We've seen earthquakes take place when there's massive hurricanes around the area, strong low pressure systems around the plate boundary. So yeah, obviously pressures do affect, I think they do affect the plate boundaries and the stress provided on them. But to say it 100%, we just can't do that yet. It's not 100% proven. All right. Had to throw that in there because just, a lot of people asking about it. So we'll try to keep a little bit more eye on stuff like that. Keep a little chart of, when we see these elevated conditions and if there's strong relationship between earthquake activity and these events. I think it's kind of interesting to study, but it's not 100% factual yet. We can't just come out and say that. I know a lot of these earthquake apps, the one I use is... what's it called? It's called Solar Alert, and I keep it on my iPhone. It's pretty cool. It's got a little bunch of different things that you can look at. The effects on the power grid, the effects on folks that are flying at high altitudes. It gives you a couple days advance, and this thing woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning when my phone was silent. So I don't know if there's a setting to where I can change that, but it was a critical level event and they felt I needed to know about it. And I did, but I went back to sleep. But there is also a little setting here on this app that says it's got an earthquake symbol and probability of earthquakes of minor to moderate intensity. When a solar storm arrives over the following days, there is a probability of earthquakes caused by the effect of the sun's electromagnetic radiation on the Earth's crust and seismic risk areas. So people have known about it. They've been picking up on it, but there's not 100% proof of it. There's been strong events in the past and only minimal earthquake activity, even days following it. So we're just going to watch that a little bit more and see if, see if we can't maybe relate those two events. All right. Hawaii. Kilauea Volcano still showing some activity out here south of the crater. Let's go and check out the latest information statement here on Kilauea Volcano and see what's going on here today. This update was put out today, it looks like. Kilauea Volcano is currently not erupting. Looks like the seismicity continued in the southwest rift zone. Obviously, the input of magma into the area is creating some of these earthquakes and the obvious rise of inflation. Eruptive activity could occur in the near future with little or no warning. Right, the area underneath the summit and just to the south of the summit, the southwest rift zone, is swole pretty good. We're looking at quite the tilt going on there across the area. Let's go check that out on the official tilt meter. Hold on one second here. Because that plays a major part on how much magma is potentially accumulating underneath this region. Here's the tilt meter. Looks like we went down slightly here in the last 2 days. There was a couple dips, a really sharp dip earlier this morning, but now we're starting to go back up. Previous trends have told us here that this elevated activity of inflation continues for about 5 or 6 days or so, maybe a little bit more, and then drops off for a couple days in a deflation event. This one does not look like it's doing it. This one just keeps going up and up and up. So I'm kind of curious to see how much longer this volcano is going to withstand the tilt, the inflation, so to speak, here underneath this area. A look at the region here today. This is a portion of Lava Lake. Cold conditions. In fact, Mauna Loa there to the west seen some snow. I think it was yesterday or the day before. So conditions are colder up here around this region. Maybe even some rain. I don't know what it looks like here today in terms of the weather. But volcanic gases and the general heat underneath this area is going to make this look a lot more active than what it is. A lot of that's condensation taking place in the somewhat moist air, I'm guessing. a lot of clouds up there as well. So it looks like it may be more active, but it's really not in terms of the lava lake area. I see that a lot when I go up to Mount Lassen here, go hiking up here on occasion, and we got these boiling mud pots, and they don't look all that impressive in the summertime when you go up there, but in the wintertime when it's cold, there's a lot of that steam and condensation, and it may look like smoke, but it's basically just condensation taking place between the heated area below and the moist area above the surface. There's a little bit of spitter spatter event taking place here. That's going to be this. Looks like about 2 to 3 hours of intense earthquake activity there at Kilauea Volcano, and that is from that little swarm. Let's go over here and see. It looks like they included some of it, mostly right here. It looks like there's a lot more than what was reported, though. There's only about 5 in there, and on this Kilauea chart, there's definitely a lot more than 5. Followed by some quietness, and it looks like some fluid movement here. This magma movement looks like some type of tremor movement in that area where this station's located. And I pulled up the one just south here of the Kilauea lava lake region. This new little event down here, a little separate swarm going on south of the summit area. This whole area definitely looks like it's going to be the spot where maybe we see something open up and we see an eruption take place. I'm leaning more towards that, this area. And I mentioned here about eruptive activity. I'll cover that real quick. Let's go back here. I know the USGS has covered it before too. But there's a little article here in the Wikipedia that mentions an eruptive type event, more of an explosive event compared to all these, these fissures opening up and seeing that general activity there around Lava Lake. Let's see here. I know they had mentioned it. Okay, maybe this one right here. Geological records show, however, that violent explosive activity predating European contact was extremely common. So we're talking about in 1790, and that seems like a long time for us, right? But geologically, that's really not. One such eruption it caused a bunch of fatalities out there, making it the deadliest volcanic eruption in what is now the United States. Should explosive activity start anew, the volcano would become much more of a danger to humans. So eruptive, explosive activity has taken place out here at Kilauea Volcano. It hasn't always been just these beautiful fissures opening up and lava pouring out. If everything's blocked, if everything's compacted, if everything's strained and stressed down below the subsurface, obviously, eventually you have to have an explosion or an explosive type eruption. That's possible with this one because we haven't really seen anything open up out here. Just a lot of tilt rising and rising and rising and rising. And how much longer is it going to continue to inflate before things decide to go? So we'll continue to watch that. Obviously, we're at the highest tilt level in 5 years since the 2018 eruption that occurred. I think we had some further further fissures opening up here. I believe just to the east here. Remember that 2018 is pretty interesting to watch that. So the longer this goes without an eruption and the inflation continues, obviously we could be looking at the likelihood of an explosive type event. It's been proven in the geological record. Yeah, a couple hundred years ago, but a couple hundred years ago is nothing in terms of volcanoes and earthquakes and all the general Mother Nature stuff, right? It's very recent. All right, let's see. Activity here in Fiji still continuing. Deep movement here over the last 24 hours. We really haven't seen any sufficient large-scale activity take place here across this region. I expect to pretty soon. Until then, we get this little teeter-totter event. A lot of times we won't see that westward migration taking place here with the Pacific Plate, general northwestward migration, which shows here on the GPS charts. We're seeing deeper activity down here, but not a whole lot of further adjustment across this region. That tells me right there that we should still be watching areas here across the eastern Pacific. A lot of times when things lock up and go quiet here, we really start to move across this region. And I think that's what's playing out here in the last 24 hours with California getting a lot of activity. Things up against the North American plate, stirring up Puerto Rico Trench as well, getting squeezed in between this area. So until we see some further large-scale movement, which could take place anytime now because of all this deeper activity, I still think we need to watch over here. So a couple different areas, right? If we see things really kick up here in a larger scale earthquake, could potentially release a little bit of strain out here against the eastern Pacific, against this plate boundary right here. But for now, still continuing to see elevated earthquake movement. Up into Alaska, they did see some activity as well yesterday with a 5.0. That's a pretty decent earthquake. Up there north of Anchorage, right around Denali, about 100 kilometers deep. It's a subduction zone type event. Haven't really seen any further earthquake movement upstream, though. The Kuril-Kamchatka Trench remains quiet, continues to sleep. These two earthquakes from yesterday, there are a couple fours coming up into the Japan Trench. And this activity from yesterday as well. Well, actually, it looks like we had one more 5-pointer down here just after 9 o'clock local time, my time here, in the Myanmar-China border region. It's been somewhat elevated here over the last couple days. Well away from the plate boundary. So definitely seeing some elevated movement in this region here. But the most likely scenario today is some further activity within this plate boundary, or potentially here the western areas of the Pacific Plate. If we don't see that, I still think we need to watch California. I can't stress that enough. New Zealand, let's see what's going on down there in New Zealand with the GeoNet servers here. Hope everyone's got a great weekend planned for them. I don't know what I'm doing. Don't have any rain in the forecast, so it's just kind of a blah day. If it was raining, I'd probably be outside barbecuing. That's just how I am. 5 hours ago, 3.1 North Island. Aside from that, nothing showing up here on this map. I'm sure they've had a couple smaller earthquakes out here. Microquakes within the last couple hours. There's 4.0 north here of the North Island region, Kermadec Trench, it looks like. 2.9 South Island area, that's just off the Alpine Fault, it looks like here. 3 hours ago. A little bit of movement down there, another 2.0. So things are somewhat... check out the drums here of New Zealand. See what's going on. A couple earthquakes showing up there on that graph. This is north. These are North Island stations here. Seeing some of that movement. Looks like localized to this area. South Island region. Going to see. Looks like maybe one of these earthquakes here. I think that was a 3-pointer, right? Not a big deal, but definitely some activity stirring up down there today. Looks like that's being reported as at 3.8, maybe just south here. So obviously things still somewhat active here. It's been active here in the last couple days. Nothing big yet, but do got to watch that. There's always some tricks potentially that could kick up here following this deeper movement. New Zealand sits further down along the plate boundary, but it is still somewhat associated here with the Pacific Plate, right? So you make some adjustment up here. We could see that adjustment zip down here across the Kermadec Trench into New Zealand. We're definitely seeing some deeper movement quakes take place here. So we'll just watch this today, see how it plays out in terms of earthquake activity. We'll keep a little tally here of these earthquakes following this event. Compare them to the next solar weather event. 4.5 in Turkey from yesterday. Today, got a 4.3 over here in Greece in the Mediterranean Sea, outside of Crete. That earthquake, not a big one, but somewhat elevated out there above the typical microquake range that we often see. The Atlantic Ocean, nothing going on. 3.0 down here in South Africa, it looks like. Coming in pretty recent. Let's check out Iceland. Anything going on here across Iceland? The latest informational statement here was put out today. Seismic activity is still decreasing. The unrest phase is not over. Difficult to say when and where the next dike will propagate. But I think the longer this goes without having an eruption or a major further influx of magma, the more solidification that could take place down here. And we may not even see an eruption take place. The automatic earthquake location system has been detecting relatively few earthquakes, mostly micro earthquakes below magnitude 1. There is still some deformation taking place there, close to the magma dike, but everything seems to be declining. With certainty, it can be stated that a phase has started where a similar sequence of events might repeat in time. At this stage, though, it is difficult to say when the next energetic intrusion of magma at shallower depth might occur and if it will occur in a similar area or not. So, just kind of looks like things may be mellowing out, but not completely. Let's look at the last 12 hours of earthquake activity. Actually, this looks a little bit more elevated, to me anyway, compared to the past couple days. 77 earthquakes here around this region of Grindavik northeastward. This is where the magma intrusion has been taking place, and also down south here, kind of extending out into the ocean a little bit. But this looks a little bit more elevated today, so I'm not for sure when they put out that article. Maybe it was prior to all this movement, but looks at least elevated here, including a 2.7 in a region south of Hagafell. They're still thinking the area that we'll see the eruption phase is going to be right here, roughly east of the Slingarfell area. But this whole area needs to be watched. That's the general area of the magma intrusion line that I've been showing throughout my updates. Looks quite active there. It's kind of funny. It's like when the weatherman says, well, looks like the thunderstorms are not going to form today, right? Everybody listens to it, and they're like, okay, sweet. And then right after that, a thunderstorm forms and then just drops a whole lot of rain. So, and it's similar to earthquake activity and space weather event. You know, if you say one thing, it's gonna do another. It's kind of crazy how that works. Quantum physics. There's a whole another level of activity in the smaller range of increase. I don't want to sound crazy here on this end, but when you speak things into existence, so to speak, literally, quantum physics is another. That's going to be another couple hour long video if we get into that. All right. They're still saying a continued likelihood of an eruption, but things are, at least when they put out this article, they were, well, this was put out, let's see here, 1650 UTC time. So that was put out about 4.5 hours or so ago. So maybe this they didn't catch this newer activity. Either way, we'll still continue to watch that and see how everything plays out. Got a lot going on out here across the globe right now. Still keeping up the Southern California Earthquake Watch right now. All seismograph stations look pretty quiet. Here's Southern California one. That's the area to watch. If you do have any cool aurora pictures, send them to earthmastermail@gmail.com. There's that, continued earthquake activity just still ramping up out here. Got to keep an eye on the Southern California region. You got the sleeping giant out here, the San Andreas Fault, right? 8.1. That would not be a good way to start off the month of December. Storm Prediction Center out here in terms of severe weather. Well, that was a flop yesterday, wasn't it? Seen a lot of storm chasers head out, some big names out there. Well, they got a whole bunch of rain, but that's about all they got. No major severe weather. Today, marginal risk for some severe weather. They're showing a 2% chance of tornadoes out there across areas of Louisiana, Alabama, and even portions of Florida over here. So just be weather aware. May or may not happen, but that's what they're forecasting here on the Storm Prediction Center. A look at the numerical models here. We're going to bring up the symbols, see what we got. Cooler temperatures out here across a good portion of the west. I'm liking it. It's 55 degrees out. The nights have been pretty cool, but we're lacking rainfall. It's awfully dry here in Northern California. We got high pressure building in. Yippee. Not really. I'm not happy about that. As we head towards the first of next week, that's going to bring some warmer temperatures out here. Hopefully that gets scooted off, and long-range models just kind of show a mixed bag of storm systems. I don't think we got anything major going on across the west coast. Total accumulated precipitation amounts. Look at this in the Pacific Northwest. These guys are getting hammered with some significant rainfall, and I'm sure some snowfall up in the Cascades as well. All that is supposed to be down here. It's an El Nino year. What's going on? I'm hoping that will fill in. It looks like the weather models are trending wetter towards the middle of the month here for California. That's decent. Looks like maybe the storm track area may be drifting south, so I can hope. I definitely am hoping for some above average temperature, or above, no above average temperatures, below average, and lots of rainfall. That's what I want here. Let's see here. Where did my I was looking at something here. Let's see. What is it? This? Well, this is the 8 to 14 day chart. Portions of Northern California look like they may be getting in there with some rainfall. Here's the 6 to 10 day outlook. There's some above average temperatures there for a good portion of the country. Looks like these guys are kind of leaning towards some wetter conditions out here for the 6 to 10 day forecast. I was looking at the where's the seasonal 3-month outlook. So this is for December, January, and February. Now we are expecting, see, this is what I'm hopeful for. This is very typical in a El Nino year to see much wetter conditions out here across California, and of course down in the south as well. Look at that. You guys are going to be well above potentially average for that region. So this is good news for December, January, and February. It looks quite wet. For January, February, and March, still got potentials here of wetter conditions, which is very typical out here in the west for an El Nino year. Same down here across the south. So that's good news. Warmer conditions up north, and I'm more concerned about precipitation. So hopefully we'll start getting some rain in here, because it's I'm not even joking. It's awfully dry here where I live, just outside of Chico, California. So we need the rainfall, folks. Looks like we'll get it. Just got to be patient, right? Patience pays off. For the folks that didn't go to bed last night, and the ones that were outside waiting for that storm to the very last minute, you know, the solar storm, the auroras, you know, patience eventually paid off. It's hard to tell sometimes in these events, you know, if it completely missed the earth or if the forecast is wrong, but looks like the forecast was pretty much spot on last night. Again, if you do have any cool pictures you'd like to share, we'll post them up here on the next video tonight. Let us know where you're at, maybe your camera that you're taking, the exposure rate, your name, and we'll put it up here on the update later tonight. earthmastermail@gmail.com. Have a good one, folks. Stay safe. Keep an eye on SoCal. Got another earthquake coming in here, a 1.2. I'm telling you, it's just it really looks like things may start to move even further down here. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later on. Stay safe.